Welcome to the Big Questions podcast. This is Gideon, your host, and Dottie.
Hey. Well, what are we going to explore today? What kind of big questions are you interested in?
I want to talk about culture and ethics, specifically animal ethics within culture.
Okay, yeah, I would love to talk about that with you. You're actually a really big example to me personally because you have such an uprightness and a diligence to with your ethics, your moral duty, not towards just humans, but animals as well. You have limited your consumption of meat. You haven't had beef or pork for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, maybe longer. And recently we were listening to the book Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari. And in it, he mentioned things like how we treat cows when they're milked, that we take the calves away from their mothers very quickly. And
I feel like even in the best of farms, the cows are still kind of like pretty miserable.
well, so after that book, we scheduled a visit to a local farm thinking, oh, well, instead of going to buying our stuff from a mass factory farm, let's see if we can buy local and if they have better ethics. And so we went, and do you want to kind of talk about your experience at the tour?
Yeah, the start was really a giving point because that's where they kept the cows. A lot of them are like
The babies,
locked.
the calves.
The calves, yeah. A lot of them are like hooked up in these little bin thingies. I'm not sure what they're called, but they're like chained up to these things. And I'm not sure if
So yeah, they had
have
kennels.
free time really. Do they have free time?
Well, so we pull up, and each of the calves, there's about 30 to 40 calves, all tied up to like a kennel, like a dog kennel. And their chain is about 6 feet long, maybe. And they're sitting in their own poop and hay, and there's flies all over them. And so, yeah, it was kind of a sad, depressing sight at the beginning. And the first question you asked the tour guide was, do you remember?
It was either I think it may have been how long do the mothers get to keep the calves? Or
Yeah, how long before you remove the calf from the mother? And the tour guide said what?
2 or I think 3 days, something of that sort.
Yeah, that was kind of tough for you to hear, huh?
Yeah.
Because mammals, like us, we have a very special period where we bond with our mother. And that's how we create trust, and we get that bonding hormone, oxytocin, that is fundamental in how we grow up and navigate the world and relationships. So yeah, that was tough to see, huh? So then, what was your next question you asked?
Was it do the cows have any free time or was it something else? I can't quite remember.
Yeah, you said, how long are the calves chained here to their kennels? And the answer was
I think some weeks.
10 weeks.
Oof.
Yeah, that was rough. And then your third question was, do they get any time off their chain? And what was the answer?
No.
No. So that was pretty tough. So we were hoping that buying local would alleviate our ethical concerns, huh? And that we could enjoy some milk without feeling bad. But you want to express kind of how you felt at that moment?
I feel like they treat it better than normal cows, and if that's how, like, the best, like, the cows are treated best, then the big factory cows are treated horrible.
Yeah. So then we went on, though your mind was already pretty set that you were going to stop eating or drinking any dairy. But we moved on to see where the mamas so after the moms become pregnant and give birth, they put them in a special place, and that's the next place we went to go visit. And do you want to kind of describe that room or that building?
There was a mother and a calf. At that moment, the calf was just resting in the corn. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then so also in that building, the mothers would essentially be lined up in these little cage areas where they only had like a foot on each side of them, and they also would just poop where they're sitting, and every so often this big squeegee would automatically come across the floor, sweeping all the squeegeeing all the poop away. But it smelled terrible. The cows looked miserable.
Another thing that's kind of bad about that is I especially don't like one part I don't like about how the cows are treated is I think they should suit the squeegee with insect repellent because all those flies gotta be bothering the cows. At least put something to keep away the flies.
They did seem very bothersome. So then, this was kind of interesting, kind of cool. They had a robot. So whenever the cows needed to milk, they would go through this kind of hallway that had a reward system, and they get in and they hook up to this milking machine automatically, so there's no humans involved. The machine would clean their udders so no bacteria would build up. It would milk them, and then the cows, it would force them out of that room.
And if they came back, they wouldn't be milked if they tried to go back in the hallway.
Right. So yeah, they were in this room essentially for, what was it, 3 months? They would milk them for 3 months, and they wouldn't be allowed to go out into the pasture to graze.
Aren't cows pregnant for much longer?
Well, so the time that they're pregnant plus the time that they're producing milk, they were in this room or this building.
I mean, that seems like it's probably the case because right when they have the baby, they take away the baby after like 3 days, and the cow already has milk when it has the baby, doesn't it?
It starts producing milk, yeah, right when it has the baby.
So I
don't think they keep the pregnant cows in that room. Only once they have the baby, they bring them in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once they have baby. Oh, yeah. That's right.
And
Not
then
for how long they're pregnant. Yeah.
and then we learned also that if they give birth to a boy, then they slaughter that cow and give it to fast food restaurants. So that's the
I,
kind of meat we're eating at our fast food. It's milk male cows.
that's 4 years is till they're slaughtered. I he asked that question to the tour guide. How long the male cows would be slaughtered?
That's right. Yeah, 3 to 4 years before they're slaughtered. So they let them grow to their max size and then they slaughter them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. You're taking steps in your own life to make changes. How you talked about culture and ethics. What are ways you can suggest to your listeners to start changing the ethics in our culture around animal cruelty?
Mm, well, first off, I suggest our listeners to stop eating beef because it's not just that it's kind of cruel, it's also that cow farts actually yeah, help climate change. I mean, they
Worsen it.
they worsen climate change.
Methane gas. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So one way is to either slow down your beef intake, or to find alternatives completely. That's kind of a big ask for a lot of people.
Oh,
Have,
sorry, listeners, if that's too big for you.
well, what are some maybe baby steps or things, incentives to help them? Like, you've found a plant-based alternative to cheese and you seem to like it, right?
Yeah, I like the plant-based cheese.
So luckily it seems like there are more options available for plant-based foods, which is nice. And it seems like every year there's more and more options in that realm.
Yeah, maybe for a start, you might want to start at home buying maybe alternative cheese. Is it okay if I ask you that, listeners? Or would that be too big for you?
Yeah, maybe it's just the first step is becoming aware of the harm. Maybe go visit a dairy farm
Yeah,
and just see how that impacts you emotionally.
yeah, that should be a start. Another thing I think might be a little less uh, of a big step than what I have suggested is maybe buy local milk instead of normal milk.
That helps cut down on carbon emissions from the truck drivers,
Yeah,
and perhaps it's not, local farms aren't as cruel to the animals. If the listeners are really interested, I say you just source your own products. So whatever milk you're buying or beef or whatever it is, see where it's coming from, and you can investigate that place on your own.
yeah. Study your own on your own, listeners.
Cool. All right. Well, is there anything you want to leave the listeners with?
I'd like to put one more thing. I also wanted to talk about culture towards animals. I just like to give one example. There's one culture, was it Christian, that said that humans have eternal souls and animals do not. Well, even if that was true, then the people have more lives to spare, and the animals only have one. The animals would say, if they suddenly developed culture, that we have one life and humans have infinite lives.
Interesting argument. Did you come up with that on your own, or did you hear that?
I think I came up with it on my own.
That's a good argument. All right. Well,
Nice time, listeners. This was Big Questions with Gideon and John Driggs. It's weird calling my dad that.
you can call me Dad.
And Dot.
Thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Yay.